Hello, this is Pam Bliss. Thank you for taking your time to view this video. The presentation you are about to see is one that was given to residents at a homeowners town hall that was held on June the 18th. Thank you for your time. Before we begin, I would like to make something very clear. I do not have a background in the law, and I am not a lawyer. I have gathered information to the best of my ability that I believe to be true and correct, and that is what I will be presenting to you today. The presentation that you are about to see is about financial responsibility. Financial responsibility for the golf course, our HOA operations and how the business is managed, and also options that homeowners may have. But most important, it is about who and what you can trust. This is a presentation about business and how the way the business is conducted affects all of us homeowners. I want to be very clear about this next thing. This is not about personal attacks on anyone. It is purely about the business of this HOA. We will be talking about honesty, accountability, and consequences. But you will probably have more questions than answers by the end of this presentation. We will be discussing how 7 people control $6,194,215 of our HOA dues money, and that is just for this year. How 7 people control 18 sanctioned committees, establish all the rules and regulations for 1,586 homes, enforce the rules and regulations, and set the punishment for any violations, and also control all of the communications that go out to the entire HOA, including the newsletter. So let's move on to the golf course. We will not be discussing whether or not we should purchase the golf course or not purchase the golf course. That decision is in the rearview mirror. What we will be talking about are things that we are challenged with today. However, before we go there, I would like to clear up some scare tactics that were used. And these scare tactics are things that were told to our community that have proven not to be true. Things that were very, very much a concern to people before they even voted on the golf course. But let's set the record straight on 2 of these things, shall we? The first scare tactic that I would like to address, and I refer to them as scare tactics. I don't know what you would call them, but I'm still hearing this from people because they still believe this. Remember when we were told if we don't buy the golf course, a developer will build high density, low income housing? Well, here's the truth about that scare tactic. Long before the colony was ever even starting to be developed, the Army Corps of Engineers came and surveyed this land, and they identified 2 blue lines. Now, blue lines are classified as United States waterways. Here you see a map taken from the United States Geological Services. You can visit this map yourself. I have outlined the colony in red. As you can see, there are 2 blue lines running through the entire community. These blue lines, again, have been classified by the Army Corps of Engineers as U.S. waterways. A developer cannot build upon a U.S. waterway. A developer would have to go to Washington, D.C., and get the Army Corps of Engineers to reclassify this property. I believe that that would be highly unlikely. You can also see a 3rd blue line. That blue line crosses the corner of Nutmeg and Jackson. If you look at that corner, you can see where a developer came and developed and built houses around that corner, but not the entire corner. Because of the blue line, the rest of that corner is Glen Arbor Park because the developer could not develop it. As a matter of fact, the examples that were used during the golf course mini meetings of other communities where a golf course had closed and a developer came in and started to develop the land was also a little misleading because those golf courses that closed did not have blue lines running through them. So it's kind of like they were comparing apples to oranges. As a matter of fact, here's a screenshot of a map that was in an HOA-produced video. It's very clear that you can see how the HOA has the blue lines outlined. They are the creeks that run through the golf course. Something else that I termed as a scare tactic that was used was that the golf course will go brown. It'll become overgrown and rodent infested, and homeless encampments will happen. Do you remember hearing that? Well, here's the truth about that. On September 8th, in 2021, our councilperson, Lori Stone, held a city town hall here at the Colony in our auditorium. And she had Deputy Director Brian Ambrose give a presentation on the city's aggressive yet compassionate plan of addressing the homeless situation. He described the Homeless Outreach Team, which is a combination of city employees together with the Murrieta PD. Here are a couple of slides from the presentation that Deputy Director Ambrose gave to us. As you can see, the plan that the city implemented several years ago is a very comprehensive plan. And they gave this presentation to us back in 2021. Recently, there was a posting saying that there was a new plan that the city is implementing. No, the city has had this plan up and running for several years now, and way before the golf course meetings even started to happen. Here's a bit more of the truth. On July 26th of last year, the mayor of Murrieta and our councilperson, Lori Stone, came here to the Colony and attended a town hall that Jeff Sherborne put on, and I gave a presentation at. And during that meeting, they took questions from the residents who were in attendance. A lot of the questions involved, what if the golf course closes? The city stated clearly that it would not allow the golf course to become overgrown with weeds because it would be a fire hazard. And if the owner did not take care of it, indeed, the city would step in. They also said that they would not allow an unhealthy or unsafe environment to occur. And they did address the matter of a chain link fence. They said the city would not allow that either. So now that we've debunked and proven to be wrong what I term as the scare tactics that were used, can we all agree to leave those behind? Can we all agree that if we hear somebody talk about that or say something about them because they still believe them, we can show them or talk to them and let them know how they were nothing more than scare tactics? On February 7th of this year, the last budget town hall meeting, there was also a general session. At this general session, the board allowed residents to go up to the podium and make comments or ask questions. Here's one of the comments made by one of our residents.
And how these things are written. Now, Article 20 says all of the expenses of the golf course, the restaurant, and the pro shop are the expenses now of the common expenses. That's you folks. That's all of us. That's the HOA. Now, there's not a single word mentioned about the income. And we've been represented from day one that that income goes to an LLC to be formed. And that's where the income's going to stay for the golf course, for the clubhouse, for the pro shop, and for the restaurant. It's all going into a separate entity. We don't get any offset for the expenses of the golf course, the restaurant, the pro shop. Now you guys can say, oh, that's wrong, Glenn. We would never do that to you. It's done.
Well, it certainly seems like Mr. Bosworth knows what he's talking about. But let's see how the president of our board responds.
Article 20 is in effect if we get hold of the property, period.
So, where is the truth? Does Mr. Bosworth know what he's talking about? Or does the president of our board tell him the truth? Let's see if we can find out. Recorded May 20th, 2022. Over a year ago, Article 20 became an active part of our governing documents. So for over a year, Article 20 has been in full effect, not if and when we get a hold of the property. So if anybody would like pages 1 through 17 of what was filed, let me know and I will email you a copy of it. But wait, Mr. Bosworth also mentioned something about an LLC. Let's see if we can find out a little bit about that. Recorded the 20th of June, 2022, a year ago. Articles of Organization, California Limited Liability Company. Filed with the Secretary of State. And who is it signed by? Oh, Bruce Delfonso. So now you've seen and heard the videos. You've also seen the documents that have been time and date stamped as when they were filed. So now here's the question. Who and what do you trust? So whose best interest is really being served? Why does the HOA refuse to provide copies of court documents and rulings? Or the monthly receivers reports? May 18th of this year, the court ruled that the value of the performance deed is $2.7 million. Now, we were told this by the president of our HOA. However, he didn't tell the rest of the story. That if the property is not redeemed by Majestic, meaning that if Majestic does not pay the $2.7 million, that amount will be issued as a credit to the bid of the HOA at the foreclosure sale. This was told to us at the last board meeting in June by our vice president. Here's a portion of that order that I have highlighted. The entire order is available for you to read if you wish. So what does this order that we just talked about mean to the special assessment? Since now we have the $1.5 million, which is the maximum amount that we authorized to purchase the golf course, already covered by way of the credit that the judge said she would give to us if Majestic did not redeem the performance deed. Shouldn't that mean that the special assessment should be reduced from almost $2,000 down to roughly $1,050? Or are they still planning on collecting the full amount? You know, the question of if we can purchase the golf course for less than $1.5 million, would we be getting a rebate or a refund from the special assessment? That question was asked several times during the golf course meetings, and the consistent answer that was given was no. Any money left over would go to the golf course.
So accordingly, the court found that the value of the performance deed of trust is going to be $2.748 million, which may be included as a credit to a foreclosure. So if it goes to foreclosure, we don't have to put a dollar up until someone bids at least $2.748 million. So that's pretty good.
Now, what we just heard the vice president of our HOA say is not accurate at all. That if the bid goes above 2.7 million, that is when we would have to put out a dollar. Not true. That's not how it goes. Because in May of last year, the HOA membership, by way of a vote, we approved a maximum bid of $1.5 million to purchase the golf course. This means that if the purchase price exceeds 1.5 million, we're out. We cannot bid above $1.5 million because that is the limit that we authorize the board to go. Now, I don't think that the vice president of our board meant to mislead us or deceive us, not at all. I just think he just doesn't understand. Let's go through the next few court documents rather quickly. On May 31st of this year, Judge Asbury recused herself from presiding over the fraudulent conveyance trial. Apparently, some evidence came into the court that indicated that her mother attended a meeting in 2007, and that meeting was with the owners of the golf course. The judge, citing this as a conflict, recused herself and stated that all orders that she had issued be vacated. This was on the third day of the trial. On the following day, June 1st, the attorneys for Majestic filed a motion to disqualify Judge Asbury from the performance deed case and set aside all the rulings that she had made. They based their motion on her recusal from the fraudulent conveyance trial, citing after learning the full extent of the involvement of the judge's mother. Here is a portion of the motion that Majestic filed to disqualify the judge, and I will paraphrase what I have highlighted. It basically says that the judge's mother was a vocal opponent of the HOA purchasing the golf course, and that she was previously on the board of directors, and she had attended a meeting in July of 2007 where the owners of the golf course were also in attendance. The entire notice of disqualification is available for you to read. On June 6th, the attorneys for the HOA filed an objection to disqualify Judge Asbury from the performance deed case, and they cited the reasons that were stated in the motion by Majestic were misstated, and there really wasn't any evidence to support what they said in their motion. Now, the motion that our attorneys filed, I have distributed, and you could read in its entirety if you wish. Okay, so here's the status of where we stand. On June 8th, Judge Asbury filed her own notice, striking down the disqualification motion that Majestic had filed. But then the next day, the judge's court issued a minute order reassigning the performance deed case to another judge. So the status is both the performance deed and the fraudulent conveyance cases have now been reassigned, and Judge Asbury will no longer be presiding over any case that involves the colony. So here are the facts as I see them. The mother of the judge presiding over the performance deed and the fraudulent conveyance cases had indeed owned and lived in the colony. She also served on the board at a time when the board attempted to purchase the golf course and levied a special assessment. To me, that sounds like she was an advocate for the purchasing of the golf course. I hate to say it, but it does seem like Majestic does have a point here. So something that I believe that we should know, but don't, is why wasn't an objection filed years ago by the HOA versus allowing the judge to preside, exposing the HOA to potential setbacks and further delays, which we are now experiencing? This information was known, so why wasn't it acted on? Something else that I think that we should know but don't is what was the compromise the HOA attorneys presented at the mandatory settlement conference that was ordered by the court back in December of last year? Why haven't we been told what the HOA offered to settle and end this then? Remember, Article 20 is in full effect and has been for over a year. Article 20 obligates the HOA to a joint maintenance agreement. Now, isn't that the basis of the performance deed lawsuit in the first place? Article 20 also obligates the HOA to assume all financial obligations as common expense. These are the financial obligations that the golf course may fall short of. And the language in Article 20 is all of these things are for any owner of the golf course. So, what was offered at the mandatory settlement conference? In my opinion, we deserved an answer to that question. We deserve to know what were the deal breakers? Exactly what did we offer to end this? I have no idea, but I would sure like to know, wouldn't you? So here's a little bit of truth about Article 20. Did you know Article 20 was never required? Changing the CC&Rs was not necessary to purchase the golf course. Now you might be thinking, well, wait a second. The lawyers told us that it was. The board told us that it was. So what do you think you know, Pam, that's any different than this? Well, let's see. There is documented evidence that in 2003, virtually the same law firm, the same HOA president, put forward a ballot measure for the HOA members to vote on, and they voted to purchase the golf course and they approved a special assessment. As a matter of fact, they actually started even collecting the special assessment. Again, in 2003, the same law firm, the same HOA president, put forward a ballot to the HOA membership, and they voted to purchase the golf course, and they approved a special assessment, and even began collecting that special assessment. All of this, and not one word of the CC&Rs needed to be changed. And that is the truth. So here's the question that we should already know the answer to, but don't. Why was Article 20 filed over a year ago? just 15 days after the golf course vote and months before any court rulings. Kind of seems to me, was it just a coincidence that after Article 20 was approved, the HOA began giving money to the golf course instead of purchasing vouchers for rounds of golf? Was that just a coincidence? I don't know. So moving on, why was the receiver appointed over 3 years ago? The answer to that is to enforce the judgment that our attorneys want, and that was primarily to maintain the fingers and slopes and the golf course. Now remember, since last October, the board has been fully responsible for the receiver and manager of the golf course, and the court appointed that receiver to enforce the performance deed judgment, which was to primarily maintain the fingers and the slopes, as well as the golf course. So let's see how that has been working out for us, shall we? Let's move on to the receiver's report, just briefly. Since November of last year, the receiver's reports have been changing. At least that's what I've noticed. Because I used to question invoices that were attached, like for airfare and hotel bills and rental cars. But now those invoices are no longer included. The HOA funding is being reported a little bit differently now, too. Instead of being as HOA contribution or HOA funding or owner contribution, it seems to me like it's now being lumped in and reported as greens fees. Now, greens fees are the sums of money that golfers pay to come and play golf. But if part of that money is a gift, doesn't that make it look like more golfers are actually paying to play golf than there really are? And the HOA funding is being delayed. It used to be reported the same month that it was authorized and given and received. Now it's a little bit different. I've sent out many, many months of receivers' reports, so you can look at them yourselves and see if you see a difference. And if you do, like I do, ask why. Here is some more information that I think that we should know, but we don't. Like how much money to date has actually been spent on the golf course? How much money for attorney's fees in the litigation? How much money for attorney's fees for other things? Because you do know there are other things. Those 17 pages of Article 20, they weren't written for free. And what about the receiver and management? We kind of know how much has been spent there because that's a flat sum fee, $2,500 a month for the receiver and $7,500 a month for the management. Okay. And what about the monthly funding that we are giving them? Well, we have a better handle on that thanks to Chuck, because he is reporting that for us, so we've got a pretty good idea of that. But what about the consultants? Because every time we hear talk of the golf course, it's, oh, the consultants say this, the consultants guarantee that, the consultants made this recommendation. Who are these consultants? They certainly don't work for free. And what about the experts? We're constantly hearing that an expert said this, or an expert gave that opinion, or an expert said it would cost this much. Well, who are all these experts? We know of one expert because he testified in court, and I can guarantee you he didn't do that for free. What else don't we know on how much we are spending on this golf course? I have no idea. In January of last year, we were informed that the board met in executive session and decided to purchase rounds of golf for the total sum of $60,000 to help out the golf course. The rounds of golf were to be given away. To this date, the board has never shown an accounting of this giveaway. We have no idea who those vouchers went to. We have no idea how many were actually given out or how many were redeemed. Now we've heard, oh, we gave them to a charity, or we gave them to a church group, or we gave them to some young golfers. We don't know that. We have not seen any documentation to support any of that because we have never been shown a full accounting of the $60,000 we gave away. Something else I think we should know, but we don't. The golf course committee. Who's on this committee? Now, many months ago, there was something in the newsletter. This is how the golf course committee is organized. Well, that is outdated and that is no longer accurate. I know that for a fact. So how were they recruited? Does anybody remember getting a notice from the HOA saying, hey, we're forming a golf course committee. If anybody would like to be on it, please let us know. Because I certainly don't remember any notice like that at all. And who selected these people? And how were they selected? And when and where do they meet? I'm sure there are people here who would like to sit in on some of these meetings and see exactly what do they do and why does it even exist? I have no answers for any of these questions. But don't you think we should?
Picture because there's expenses coming up here this month. First thing, you may have seen some of the work starting already. The city did come and say you need to get some of these slopes cut. It's starting to happen. There will be an expense for that will hit their bottom line. And now as you get into June, July, and August, it starts to get warmer, which means more water. We're not going to probably be having the big rainfalls that we've had. But also, as it gets warmer, you get less golfers in the afternoon. So they're going to try to manage that the best they can. They've been doing a very good job of really trying to manage their expenses around that. The other thing, I started to touch on it last month, they are going to make a formal request to their, Kyle, the person that's managing, is going to be making a request to his boss. He's been interviewing actual golf course superintendents. Right now, they have a bunch of people, I don't want to diminish what they're doing, but they know how to maintain yards and lawns and things like that. There's an opportunity, he thinks, with the new revenue coming in, that they can actually go ahead and hire a golf superintendent, somebody that knows the golf business, somebody that knows the chemicals, knows the seasonality and how to manage greens and how to manage tee boxes and how to manage a grounds crew and what needs to be done and what priority. So he's going to start with the approval process to get that done, and I think that will also deliver a better product. Chuck and I met with him, and if I remember right, Chuck, he believes the return on the better product will cover the cost of that.
So there you have it. You just heard our board president say the city stepped in, just like the mayor said that they would, to make sure that the golf course doesn't become overgrown, as it was becoming. I also kind of felt like I was being prepared not to be surprised for the funding requests that were coming, because summer's here, water usage is going to go up, the temperatures are going to go up, so that means less golfers are going to be playing. Is that the feeling that you got? Because it is what I got. And then, most shockingly, after 3 years, the receiver who was appointed by the court as an expert to run a golf course, is just now looking to hire someone who is experienced with golf course management, with managing the grounds and the greens, and which chemicals to use and which procedures are best? After 3 years? Do you find this reasonable? Because I gotta tell you, I don't. Now I'd like to move on and wrap up our portion on the golf course. But before I do, I'd like to play a video clip because I think it's very important that this information gets widely distributed.
Needs within our gate. Some people can write that check no problem, and some are on this other side living check to check and need to be more frugal with their finances. So we need to find ways for everyone to afford those dollars. Now, we're just experimenting here. None of this is in stone. We're just throwing things against the wall and see what'll stick. One of them, obviously, is to write a check. There are people within our gate that have the means to write that check, put it in their rearview mirror, and move forward. Another option could possibly be, can we find a way to do either monthly payments or quarterly payments over some specific amount of time along with some interest? There might even be an option, who knows, to where we can have a homeowner pay at the time of sale for those that are really strapped. These are all the different types of things we're going to look at to try to come back with solutions.
This is the actual screenshot while the video was playing. There was no trick editing done by me. This is it in its original form. I am terribly concerned that there are many of our neighbors and friends and residents here who are totally unaware of this, who continue to think that when the special assessment comes down, they will have the opportunity to make payments on it. There are many of our neighbors and friends here in the colony who are not financially secure, who need to start putting what little bit they can away each month now so that they're not completely blindsided. This deeply troubles me. So let's move off of the golf course and on to our HOA operations, because I truly believe that we've got some serious problems. And not just how we're going to financially sustain a golf course, but how we are going to financially sustain our HOA. So, what do you believe would be the most accurate record of what happened at a meeting? Do you think it would be an unedited video recording or a handwritten notes that are edited into written minutes? Well, I guess I was wrong, because I thought a video recording would be the most accurate. But that's not what our board or management thinks. They believe that the most accurate record of what happened in a meeting are handwritten notes that are edited into written minutes. Whose best interest is being served here, since videos have now been deleted and scrubbed from YouTube? Did you know that February, March, and April, the general session meetings of this year, have already been deleted and you can no longer see them? As a matter of fact, all other general session meetings prior to this year have been completely deleted. Here's a screenshot of the YouTube page showing which videos are left. As you can see, not many of the general session meetings are even available anymore. Most of them are town hall meetings or meetings like with the Water District. Even Lori Stone's town hall meeting with the city is still available, but not general session meetings. If you notice, there's one that I circled that says edited. That's a town hall meeting that was for projects that the board was considering on doing for the community. And it was promoted as residents should come because then they can comment and ask questions about the different projects that the board was considering. However, at the beginning of that meeting, that's not what happened. Our president of the HOA announced that if there were any member comments, they should make them now at the beginning of the meeting, and then they would proceed with the rest of the meeting. Well, he asked for comments, and I was the only one to comment. And I said, this was not what you told us it was going to be. You told us that we were going to be able to question some of these projects. In any event, that entire portion of the meeting has been edited out. Even the portion of the president of the HOA opening the meeting has been edited out. And the meeting begins with Joanne Deegan starting to talk about a project that she was handling. That is how 7 people control what is being put out to this community. So, whose best interests are being served here? Videos are being deleted, which I believe is the most accurate record of the meetings. Live stream chat has been disabled. Now, that is a feature that I would think the board would view as being a very valuable tool. Because if you're sitting at home watching a board meeting as it's being conducted live, you used to have the ability to make comments or even question something. And I think that that would be a very valuable tool for the board to use. So they would be able to see what residents are liking and what they're not liking or what they have a question about. But no, once that was starting to be used by residents, it was quickly disabled. Now, videos that you have seen have been edited. Minutes do not always match the events as a video recorded them, nor do the minutes on the website match the minutes in the newsletter. Critical things are left out or changed. So whose best interest is being served here? Here are a couple of examples. Minutes do not always contain the residents' comments. Rarely do they. Videos show motions passed, but then later reversed or changed behind closed doors. When does that happen? In just the past 90 days, if you recall, the Communications Committee got new cameras approved, and the purchase was supposed to happen immediately. But somehow, that was reversed behind closed doors. I found this out when I was looking into having my meeting and asked when the new cameras were going to be delivered, and was told, oh, we're not doing that now. They decided to wait. Then the rule allowing golf carts to park in driveways was approved. We even got a notice of here's the new rule. Now we find out that apparently it's been discussed and they are proposing rescinding the new rule and using the ballot for the annual election to have the community vote on this. When did all of that happen? Certainly, these are not topics for an executive session. So let's take a look at executive sessions. In the state of California, they are described in what's called as the Open Meeting Act. And these 3 California civil codes govern that act and describe it. Executive sessions are legally limited to the following categories: litigation, either active or pending, the formation of contracts, and note, I said formation, not the bidding, disciplinary hearings, which would be a confidentiality issue, the termination of contracts, payment plans for members, personnel issues, disability requests, to initiate a foreclosure, or even mental illness. For example, if a neighbor is a hoarder and their hoarding has now posed a threat to the community, that would fall under this category. Director censor, or potential liability issues that require the counsel of a lawyer. These are the only categories that are legally allowed to be discussed in an executive session. I'm sure you can think of quite a few that have been discussed that shouldn't have. For example, where does turning off the water of our front yards fit in? Or spending $60,000 to buy golf vouchers to help the golf course. Where does that fit in? The golf carts. Where does that fit in? The cameras for the communications committee. I could go on, and I'm sure many of you could too. But this is what is legally allowed to be discussed in executive sessions. So let's have no further confusion about what it is. Now let's move on to our HOA management. And by that, I don't mean the management company Associa. I mean the business management of our HOA. How do we compare? Well, I don't know. Let's see if we can find out. The only real way to do this is to try to find a community that is extremely similar to ours and see how they're managed versus how we are managed. So why don't we do that? Let's take Oasis as a comparison. They're in Menifee, just right up the road. 1,158 homes, started construction in 1999 and finished in 2005. The Colony. We have 1,586 homes, began construction in 1989 and finished in 2005. Oasis is built adjacent to a golf course. So are we. They are guard gated. So are we. Their dues cover the front yard maintenance. So does ours. They have a fully equipped computer room in their clubhouse for the use by residents. We do not. Curbside trash pickup is included in their monthly dues. We have curbside trash pickup, but we pay an additional fee to waste management. So that's the comparison. Let's see how the amenities compare, because our dues were increased and we now pay $320. Oasis dues were just increased and they pay $282. So perhaps they don't have the amenities we have. Let's see. So here is an overhead shot of both communities. They look very similar. It looks like Oasis might have one pickleball court than we do, but we have one extra spa that they don't have. Their dues again just went up to $282. Ours are at $320. But to be fair, let's deduct $16 from that because that's what we pay for the golf course. Still, our dues are higher. So let's look at other amenities. So here are pictures of both of our clubhouses. Look fairly even. Not much difference there, right? Okay, here's a photo of the kitchen, the clubhouse, the Oasis. Very nice. And here is a photo of our kitchen. Now, mind you, after the $1.2 million clubhouse renovation back in 2017, I was told that they didn't have enough money to also renovate the kitchen. So this is how our kitchen is today. So let's look at the barbecue area at Oasis. Very nice. Nice big covered area. Even the barbecue is covered. big outdoor fireplace. Very lovely. But again, we're not looking at who has the nicest amenities. We're looking at how the dues money are being spent. And this is our barbecue area. You will note the support beam that's being held up by two rods that's holding up the patio cover. That has been like that ever since I moved in here over 3 years ago. Again, this is not about whose area is better. This is about how the money is being spent and who is getting the most value for every dues dollar being paid. The next few photos show a lack of maintenance and neglect. This is how our dues money are being spent. Again, the purpose of this comparison is not for a personal preference of which amenities are better or prettier, but to show how the business is being managed at each different community and how the dues money is being spent. Are we getting the maximum value for every dollar that we pay in dues? That's for you to judge. So let's move on to reserves. The projections that were shown in the reserve study that was done for this fiscal year are that we would be funded by 60% for this year. Our reserves would then drop down to 59% the following year, and then 54%, but year 4 back up to 60%. Please know, reserves are there to help protect us from any special assessments. The accepted standard is to maintain a minimum of 70%. As you can see, we are very underfunded. So the question is, just how are our dues being spent? Let's see if we can shed some light on that. Unfortunately, if you ask the HOA to provide you with a copy of the budget showing each line item with a detailed description of that item and the amount that's being budgeted, you won't get it because the HOA will not provide you with it. They will only provide you with a copy of a pro forma, which is a summary, and that means all the line items are grouped together under a main category, so you really don't even know what's in there. When asked why, the answer was always, all we have to provide you with is a pro forma. If you don't believe me, I'll be happy to show you the written responses I received when I've tried to obtain a line item budget. This is the format that we used to see before I started asking questions. As you can see, there are a listing of the line items for dues and subscriptions. What popped out at me was the Netflix subscription. You might say, well, Kara shows movies in the clubhouse, so she would need one. And you're absolutely correct. She would need one. One. And that would be $110. So why are we budgeted for $350? And then I looked and saw all of this software that we're paying for. Now, mind you, this isn't software that is unique to running the colony. This is everyday software that a management company would use for any association. So why are we paying for it? Again, these are questions that I started asking once I saw a line item budget like this. And now this is the format we see. Very different, isn't it? Gosh, do you think it was a coincidence that after I started asking questions, once I saw a line item budget, that the format changed to this? This is no reflection of the budget committee. They do a wonderful job and dedicate their time to doing a good job. But remember, they can only work with what they are given and follow the direction that they are given. So let's review a couple of items that our dues have been budgeted to be spent on. Management fees. If you recall, when Associate's contract was up, they decided to renew it without going out for a competitive bid because Associa guaranteed that they would hold steady the price for 2 years, which it looks like they have done. Except we also pay all of the salaries and the benefits, which means we pay all the vacation time, all the sick leave, all the paid time off, all the holidays. You get the picture. Well, this year, that went up by almost $82,000. So it didn't really stay flat for 2 years now, did it? The total that we are paying Associa for management and services is $1,277,723 for this year. But that is definitely not the whole story. Now, in addition to the $1,277,000 we pay this year for Associa, we also pay for and provide office space for 14 employees. We pay for all of the utilities, all of the phones, and even the internet service. As a matter of fact, we bought new computers for all the staff members, including software. We provide all of the office equipment, the printers, the copiers. We even upgraded the copier so it would fold the paper. So an employee would not have to fold the paper before they put it in an envelope. We pay for and provide all the office supplies, all the paper clips, the pens, the staples. We even provide the staplers and the paper for printing and copying. Plus, we provide our own pre-printed stationery. We also provide the uniforms for the staff and the laundry service. We even pay for cell phones. Don't ask me whose, because I don't have a clue, but we do pay for cell phones. Now, when I talked to some people about this, they said, but Pam, we need on-site staff. And I totally agree with that. A community this size absolutely needs to have staff that is on site, but not 14 employees. Then I hear, well, Associa doesn't have any local offices, so we have to provide the office space for their employees. Really? Is that so? Hmm. So let's look at another item that's been approved in the budget. The clubhouse. Clubhouse supplies, $8,000. Yet no explanation for what those supplies are for. But that does sound reasonable, doesn't it? Except we're also budgeting and paying $10,000 for coffee supplies. Now, mind you, if I was to serve coffee at the town hall that I had, I would have had to bring my own coffee. So this $10,000, I'm not quite sure what it all covers. And then there's janitorial supplies, $35,000. Golly, that sounds like an awful lot of toilet paper and paper towels and cleaning supplies to me, especially when we have $8,000 for clubhouse supplies. I don't understand this because it's not broken down. We really don't know. But then you might think of, well, we've got a lovely indoor plants that need to be taken care of. Okay. But we also pay for that service in addition to everything else. $6,500. That's really not a bad price. So that's okay. But then $15,000 for recreation sponsored events. Now, I guess that doesn't include the coffee because it's $15,000. So without a real explanation of what we are actually paying for, we really don't know now, do we? Now, here's an item I really just don't get at all. Pool management, contract and chemicals, $15,500. Now sounds very reasonable to take care of the size of pool that we have. But then pool supplies, another 5,000. Pool chemicals, another 16,000. Wait, I just thought we paid for those under the contract and chemicals. Guess not. And then pool monitoring. Could somebody please explain to me what that is? I don't have a clue. And then pool equipment, the maintenance and repair, $12,000. Now, this is a problem for me because the repair of any pool equipment should come under reserves, not be budgeted under operations. So I just don't understand any of this at all. Do you? Now remember, we're talking about business management, how our finances are being managed in this association. So to try to get more information, let's see if we could get a copy of the general ledger to see just who, how, and why our money is being spent. Well, that's not going to work because what you will receive is a redacted copy. And the redactions are not solely for a homeowner's confidentiality or for any legal reason. What I am about to show you are a few pages from the General Ledger from April 2021. This is before I started asking questions. This is the first page of the General Ledger report for April of that year. I'm only showing you this page for reference. This is page 14 of the report. I know it's rather difficult to read because the print is so small, but please try to enlarge it. One of the things that really popped out at me is, gee, black and white copies, $119.25. But wait, we provide the copier, we provide the printer, we provide the paper, we provide the ink and the copy cartridge. We even pay the salary of the person who is either printing or making the copies. So why are we being charged almost $120 for black and white copies? And there's the cell phone bill, $220. Yet I have no idea whose phone that is. And then look further down. Union Bank credit card usage, Jim Morgan. 200 and some odd dollars, $17, $280, $160, and so forth. Yet no explanation for what that charge is for. Here's the next page, page 15. Look down. Credit card usage from Kara. $499, $50, $100 and change, $119 and change, $414 and change, 141, 267 and change. Now you might say, well, hey, Kara's our activities director. She needs to spend money for activities for the community. I totally agree with that. And I am not saying that Kara has done anything wrong. What I am saying is this is credit card usage by our activities director at a time when the clubhouse was in complete and total lockdown for COVID. Again, I'm not saying Kara did anything wrong, because I believe she was following someone's directions. But still, that does not explain why the activities director is using the credit card, charging these sums during COVID lockdown. More for you to look at on this page. I mean, standard envelope with a window, $10.20. And then here's my all-time favorite. You ever heard that term, being nickeled and dimed? Well, to me, this is a definition of that term. Document handling, 17 cents. And then here's a cell phone. You can enlarge this and look at it. I have no explanation for this. Again, is this good business management? I don't know. Approximately 8 or 9 months after I received the copy of the general ledger that I just showed you, a resident by the name of Diana Reeves submitted a written request into the management company asking for copies of 12 months worth of general ledgers, starting with April 1, 2021. Now remember, this was after I started questioning the items on the general ledger, and this is what she received. So here is the first page, page 1, that I showed you on my report for reference. Here it is here for reference. Except now, notice up in the right-hand corner that I have circled in red, there's a little sticker with Jim Morgan's signature on it. To me, that means that Jim Morgan went through the general ledger and approved it to be sent out. So this is a copy of the page 14 that Diana received. As you can see down below, credit card usage for Union Bank. Remember, on my report, it showed Jim Morgan. Now, his name has been redacted. Same amounts, same credit card usage, except now, whoever receives this report does not know who spent that money. And now the next page, page 15. Look down, you can see where the credit card usage is, the same amounts, only now Tara's name has been redacted. And here is the final page that Diana received, like I did. Now, to me, the general ledger is a corporate financial document. I look at these redactions as being a form of tampering with a corporate financial document. I'm not saying that's the legal term, that's just saying what I think it is. What do you think? So let's move on to the treasurer's reports. Ever since I've been here, the treasurer's reports have been at least 3 months old when they are published in the newsletter, instead of being current. Why is this? I find no legitimate explanation for that. And why are the treasurer's reports now a bit misleading versus comprehensive? For example, reports only show what has been gifted to the golf course, not what was actually spent on the golf course.
Will recall that in May, the golf course did not make a request. Well, this month they are. They have had a lot of complaints, and concerns that were brought forward to the receiver regarding the weeds that had been growing and going crazy on the fingers and slopes. So they went ahead and cleared them, but it was costly. It was $24,500. If you look at the note at the bottom of the screen, you'll see that there were two extraordinary items that occurred. One was the slopes and fingers clearing, and also the insurance premium of almost $15,000. So the two alone was almost $40,000. Without that, their request this month probably would have been in the neighborhood of around $11,000. So this is kind of a one-off.
We just heard our treasurer in the June general session meeting describe two items as an extraordinary item, which I term as something that is unforeseen, or a kind of a one-of, which again I term as something that occurs only once. Yet these two items were actually the insurance premium and the enforcement of a court order. I would not term either one of these items as an extraordinary item or a kind of a one-of. Would you? So let's look to see how fiscally responsible we're being. You've all seen contracts awarded with no competitive bids. We just purchased new computers for our entire staff and board of directors. I believe that it was over $50,000 that was spent. For some reason, the figure of $56,000 comes to mind, but I haven't received an invoice or seen a receipt. And then there's the homeowner equity account that's being used for non-emergencies. A homeowner equity account is basically a safety net for the association. In case a catastrophic event happens, the association has enough money put aside that it can pay its bills for a couple of months until it can start to recover and get back on its feet again. This is not an account that is supposed to be like a piggy bank that somebody can dip in for a discretionary expenditure. It is an account that should have anywhere from 2 to 3 months of operating expenses put aside so that we can still function as an HOA and pay our bills. Now let's use an example to see if we are really being fiscally responsible. The new gym equipment. Supposedly, the research was done on what equipment was needed and where to buy it, and quotes were obtained for this equipment. So far, so good, right? Then this information was brought to our board. A motion was made, the board discussed it, and took a vote and unanimously approved the purchase of this equipment. The orders were placed, thousands of dollars were spent. The equipment was delivered and installed. Then,
Fitness equipment. We are going to revisit some of the equipment that came in. The vibrator machine that was installed was not the original one we wanted. It's kind of way high off the ground, and it's and our expert CC there says it's dangerous. So we're looking at probably returning that, and also the stretch cage. It's for being inside. You can't stand outside and pull on it, so it will tilt. I mean, it's made to work out in it. And so if you're going to use that, you know, either YouTube it or look at the little pictures that they have in there. They're all inside, or talk to CC and she'll be happy to show you how to use it. And I don't know if we need a motion to do anything else there, Jim, or?
No, I think the message we want to send is that the board is going to revisit the recent changes that were made in the fitness room, and likely it will include talking to those individuals that frequently use that amenity as well. So whatever changes happen as a result, it will be a direct reflection of having had input from multiple users of that space. So that's the intent, at least.
Okay,
The vibrating machine, can we trade that in and exchange it for something else? Or?
Yeah, I mean, that was purchased used in the first place, so we got to look into that. And that actual piece of equipment is really new to me as well. I'm fairly familiar with gym equipment, and that's something new. I guess it's been around a bit. It helps with your balance and lifting at the same time to trigger the smaller muscles. But aside from that, I think it's a little intimidating to those people that have tried to use it so far. And it's the way it's been described is it's a very abrupt introduction to its function. As soon as you turn it on, you're even at the lowest setting, you're pretty jolted in the way it functions. So it may not be the best fit for our gym, especially with our limited space. We can probably find something that's more compatible with what our group of residents want to see in there. So we're going to look hard at finding a replacement piece of equipment that'll hopefully be in line with what that was trying to achieve, but more user-friendly.
Yeah, and I concur with that. That's a good idea. Hopefully we're not throwing money down a rat hole.
So now we learn, after the research was done, after the quotes were submitted, after the discussion was made with the board, and the board voted and the items were purchased, the equipment purchased was not suitable for our gym and could even pose a danger to those who use some of it. The equipment was ordered and delivered, yet now is being discussed to be returned or perhaps replaced, and we don't even know if we will be able to do that. Was this fiscally responsible? In my opinion, and this is just my opinion, I view this bottom line as reckless spending. What do you think it is? Again, we're talking about business management. You've all seen in general session, when the board approves a contract, they also approve a 10% contingency on that contract. Now, this is a good practice because what it does is it streamlines the work that's being done. In the event that there is something unforeseen that happens and there's a cost overrun, the entire board does not have to reconvene to approve the increase in the price. But it has never been reported, as long as I've been here, if there ever were any overages, and if so, what were they, and how much did they cost? The result of this is you and I, the entire community, we never actually know the real final cost of anything. So let's take a look at some more costs that we bear. Rules and regulations and the changes that they make. Did you know that every change is submitted to the attorneys for review, and the attorneys either write them or revise them, but they do approve them, and all of that equals billable hours by the attorneys. Then the rule or the proposed change would need to be printed and copied and mailed to 1,586 homeowners. And then if there are no changes and the board actually approves the proposed rule change, it is printed again and mailed out again to 1,586 homeowners. This is the procedure for every change. So over the past 12 months, I've identified approximately 66 individual rule changes. Now, that might not be an accurate number, but it's pretty close. So for each change, it has to be sent out for a 30-day review to the homeowners. Now, not all 66 individual changes are sent out in individual envelopes because some of them are lumped together. But in any event, to notify the HOA of a 30-day review, the postage is approximately $940 for a 1-ounce envelope, up to almost $1,900 for a 2-ounce envelope. Now, after the 30-day review, if the board approves the change, that has to be sent out again, and that postage would be incurred once again, making the total postage alone, if an approved change, of being close to $1,900 to almost $3,800. Now remember, this is postage only and does not include the attorney's fees involved or the stationery and printing and envelopes. So based on what I've just shown you, do you believe that we are managing this in a cost-effective way or even an efficient way? I don't. I do not believe that this is being fiscally responsible. As a matter of fact, in most HOAs, the rules and regulation changes are limited to a biannual basis, so every 6 months. And even there's a lot of HOAs that will not even allow that. They allow it to be reviewed once a year. What we are doing is out of control, in my opinion. So here's a quote that I've used for many years that I think just might apply to here in the colony. Just because you can do something doesn't always mean it's the right thing to do. Now let's take a look at committees and how 7 people completely control what committees there are, who can join a committee, what a committee can do, and how many people can even be on a committee.
So the way it works, and Jim, you correct me at the end of this if I'm wrong here. The way, if somebody wants to be on a committee, they apply for it, they turn in their sheet. Then you actually go through an interview process with the committee itself. The committee will look at it, do the skills match? Is it someone that's a team player? Is it someone that can work well in our environment so we can be productive? Just like you would any other interview. And then they submit their selection. If there's multiple people, they'll submit their selection to the board, and the board approves or denies. So I have.
So you just heard our board president explain the process on how to join a committee. But what do our rules say? I have no idea. I couldn't find it anywhere in the rules. So I looked to the CC&Rs, and this is what the CC&Rs say. Of course, the board has the right to appoint any committee that they choose. But nothing in this article states that there is a process for a resident to join a committee. It's just not there. Now, I have been unable to find anywhere where it is written down where this is the process on how you should join a committee. So this is what I think it should be. To join a committee, you should submit your name and address and the committee that you're interested in joining, so your qualifications can be checked. So what are the qualifications? Well, what I've seen in other HOAs is the person a resident homeowner? Are their dues and assessments current? And they have no open violations. That's it. That's the end of the qualifications. If you meet those, you're on any committee you choose to join. But that's not how it is here. So whose best interests are being served? You just heard our HOA president explain that a person would have to apply and submit an application and then wait to see if they are approved. They would have to go through interviews, which to me equals discrimination. And they'd have to be a team player, which for me is kind of a buzzword for are they able to be manipulated? That's the approval process here in the colony. And that approval process ensures that 7 people in a small group will have complete control over the entire community. So I ask you, what do you think? Whose best interests are being served? Did you know that 7 people can levy a special assessment of over $309,000 without your vote or even discussing it with you? They can spend over $309,000 on any new capital project without your vote. Every year, the Board of Directors can spend 5% of the annual budget on any new capital project without a vote from the HOA. They can also levy an assessment of 5% of the annual budget without a vote from the community. This can happen every year, and each year that 5% will become a larger number because the operating budget usually increases every year. Did you know that the board has the authority to raise our monthly dues by 20% every single year without a vote from us? Next year, our dues could be $384 a month, and the year after that, $460 a month. I'm not saying that the board is going to do this, but what I am saying is the board has the authority to do this. So here is what I believe is a real dose of reality. 7 people can control our entire community of 1,586 homes without any real accountability or consequences or even any open scrutiny of their actions. So here's the real hard question that everybody needs to answer for themselves. Who and what can you trust? Given the authority that 7 people have who sit on the board of directors, and this authority is given to them by our governing documents, again, who and what can you trust? This is a quote from Maya Angelou that always gave me comfort. When you know better, you do better. For example, if there is something that you have seen in this presentation that you can prove is not accurate or has been misstated, I would want you to come to me and tell me about it and show me where I went wrong. Because I don't feel that diminishes me or what I've said and done. That only makes me better. Because when I know better, I can do better. So now you know too. Being homeowners here in the colony, what I believe we all deserve and actually should demand, and that is honesty, transparency, integrity, equality, and fiscal responsibility, because we should all be striving for community unity. These things will help us get us there. So, how do we move forward? Option 1, don't re-elect the board. Option number 2, recall the board and elect a brand new board of directors. Being homeowners, we have very, very little power in an HOA, but the power that we do have are here in these two options. I do not believe option number 1 is really viable because at this annual election, there are only 3 seats open. And even if new people were elected to those 3 seats, the power on the board of directors would still remain with the same board of directors, because those 4 remaining directors would have the majority authority on the board. So nothing really would ever change. However, option 2, recall the board and elect new directors. That is a very big mountain to climb and not something to take lightly. Now I will quickly go through the procedures to recall a board of directors if that is something our community chooses to do. We would need the signatures of titled homeowners for 80 homes. That would be 1 per home on a petition to recall and deliver that petition to the HOA. Once the HOA has received the petition to recall, the board would then have 20 days to set a date for a special election and send out a notice to inform the community. The date for a special election can be no less than 30 days and no more than 150 days from the receipt of the petition. The special election would be a 2-ballot election, and that would be used to recall an entire board of directors. Ballot 1 would be a straight vote yes or no to recall or not to recall. Ballot 2 is the list of candidates to be opened and counted only if the recall is successful. So what would be needed to go forward with the recall? There would have to be a minimum of 80 signatures of titled homeowners on the petition. Then there would have to be a minimum of 7 homeowners who would step up to be candidates to replace the board. And of course, there would have to be a lot of volunteers to help the candidates get elected. This would be the wording that would appear on the petition. Again, an annual election this year will change nothing because the majority will remain with the existing 4 board members. However, a recall must have a solid commitment from the community because there must be enough candidates and volunteers. Without the candidates and volunteers, a recall would be a complete waste of time. Well, we've taken up quite a bit of your time, but we're at the end of the presentation. I hope that some of the information that I put together was helpful to you and has opened your eyes to a few things that perhaps you didn't know. But how this community moves forward is entirely up to each of you and the decisions that you make on your own. I thank you for your time